You're watching Making Life Brighter, and my name's Winifred Adams. In this edition of our Making Life Brighter video series, we have Guy Webster in part one of a very special series. Guy has a new book out called Big Shots, and the interview was on the radio show and the archives you can find at makinglifebrighter.com in the radio tab. But you can also take a look at some of the fun outtakes we have here, as well as the first part in a several-part series sitting down with Guy in his Venice Beach Studio, where he shares some of his amazing stories with the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, The Doors, Hendrix, the movie stars he shot. He's just a remarkable individual with a body of work that is unlike anyone. So we're going to sit down today and have a word with Guy and listen to what he has to share with us regarding his new book, Big Shots. Hello, this is Making Life Brighter, and I'm your host, Winifred Adams. And today we have a very special, iconic guest with us, Mr. Guy Webster, here in Venice Beach, California. Thank you for coming and being with me today here, Guy. This is a real treat.
Well, it's a treat for me too, because you're my type of person. Multi-talented. I like that.
Ah, you're sweet. Guy is one of the most iconic photographers in our time, and he has shot just a lifetime of amazing photos of movie stars, the greatest musicians we've known, and much, much more. And he has a new book out that we're going to be talking about in part today called Big Shots. And I was lucky enough to go to the premiere exclusive debut of that book here in Hollywood when it came out. And it was a fantastic party, and I got to meet Guy, and I was so moved by all of it that we had to sit down. So here we are in his Venice Beach studio today, and this is amazing. To look around here, you feel what must have taken place over all these years. I mean, there's pictures of Bob Dylan, there's Mick Jagger, we've got just about everybody, Ted Danson on the wall, and Jimi Hendrix, the iconic photo. So tell me how you began this journey. I know that, you said that you were born and raised in Beverly Hills here, and you were well educated. But what brought you into photography? Where did that passion come from?
Well, it's a good story. I've told it before, but it's actually so funny. It makes me laugh. It's very humorous to me. I never thought of being a photographer. I was a good artist, a painter and sculptor, but I was studying political science in school, and the Vietnam War came, and I had to go in to the Army, but I was from a Quaker school. And so I went in as a conscientious objector and said, look, I'll come in for 6 months and do my duty, but no, I'm not going to shoot guns at people. There's no way. I'm a Buddhist by nature. And they bought it, and we were in conflict in Vietnam, but it wasn't so serious when I was in there. So they said, well, look, we'll give you a good job. Now, I'm telling you this story, it's kind of the weirdest story that ever happened to me, but when I went in the Army, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a grunt for 6 months. And it turns out the guy that I went in with was connected to the mob. And this guy, the two of us drove up there to go in, and I'm going, look, Jesus, what are we going to do? We're going to have to go through basic and do all this stuff. He says, no, I've got it all taken care of. We're going to live in a private home in Carmel, and you're going to go with me every morning at 9 in the morning and just do a job for the Army, and then go home at night, and on the weekends we'll have weekend pass. I said, well, how did you arrange this? He says, I can't tell you how it was arranged, but let me tell you, everybody was paid off. I go, okay. So we lived beautifully. This is typical of my life. My whole life worked well.
It's like a fairy tale, really.
It's like a fairy tale, but this is just one example of how my life worked. I was always under a lucky star my whole life since I was a baby. So I'm in the Army, and the guy says, what do you want to do, the colonel? And I said, I don't know, what do you got? And he says, well, you're an artist, you want to decorate Christmas trees. And I'm going, okay. So for 3 months, I bought Christmas trees with wax. We had trucks, and we went up north and bought the trees and brought them down. And I spent 3 months putting them into all the barracks and decorating them. And I would give the instructions to the girls who were working for me, the wax, put a blue ball there and a silver ball there, on and on and on. It's over with. I did hundreds of trees. Now time to take them down. Now there's 3 months left of the 6 months. And the guy says to me, so Guy, you did a great job.
There's our lunch in the middle of the interview.
Well, that told you how lucky
timing.
I am, yeah. So anyway, what happens is this. He says, well, we've got an opening in the photo department. Would you like to work in the photo department? And I go, well, yeah. He says, well, do you know anything about photography? I said, oh, yeah, I know everything about photography. And I've learned in my life, if you lie at the right time, you can get ahead. And you have to know what you're doing. And I knew this was the time to lie, because the photo department sounded incredible. So I said, sure, yeah, I know everything about it. I knew nothing. I went to the Post Library that night. I was a quick read, so I read 3 books. Went in the next morning and started teaching people how to mix chemicals and load their film. I had never taken a photograph in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And so because I knew this famous film producer, on one of my weekends back to LA, he said, Guy, you're in the Army, you're in the photo department, take my camera, you're going to like it. It's a Nikon with a 50mm lens, and shoot some pictures. And I go, God, well, that's great, I'll do that. So I bought a roll of film. I was so naive, I didn't realize that you could take 35 pictures of the same thing. I did 1 picture of each thing that I wanted to photograph. And they were great. I'll show you one later if you want to see.
Yes, I'd love to see.
And they were so good that people were saying to me, Guy, you've got to go to art school with this stuff. They'll go nuts. And I go, well, I'm supposed to go to Yale. And my dad would go nuts if I don't go to Yale, because he's been dreaming of me doing that my whole life.
What were you supposed to be?
Well, I had a seat on the stock exchange waiting for me. I had wealthy people. My family were wealthy, but my uncle was very wealthy, and he was a stockbroker and high end. And I would have been guaranteed, being wealthy. And I would have lived in New York, none of which I really wanted to do. So when I found photography, I went to the Art Center School of Design, and they looked at my pictures, and they said, you did these pictures on 1 roll of film? I said, that's all I've ever photographed. They said, oh, you got to come here, go to school. So I went home and I told my parents that, I have no money, because I'm in the Army, there's no money in the Army. I didn't have money to buy a camera. So I gave my camera back to my film producer friend. And I was connected, by the way, with mafia and producers. It's all the same thing. People don't realize that the mafia was everywhere in the music business and show business. So they were everywhere in my life. So anyway, I gave the camera back, and I want to go to school. I told my dad, and he said, you're on your own, because I'm not going to back you on this. And I go, well, okay. And so I had a mafia girlfriend, and she came over to visit, and I'm going, you're not going to believe it. I want to go to Art Center. I've got no money, no cameras, and they want me to go to school there. And she said, oh, wait a minute. Now listen, this girl, first of all, she's got big breasts. She wears ermine during the day, and she's naked underneath, and wild blonde hair. And she's 17, and she's driving the Fossil Vega, which was like the Ferrari of its day. And she's like, wait a minute, I'll be right back. And she drives home, and her dad's a made man in the mafia. And she says, Guy, right? She said, my dad said he loved you, and he wanted you to have whatever I wanted. I'm like, God, how great. So she brings over a camera outfit to me. Wow. And I have now a way of going to school and a way of earning money. Because I knew I could take pictures of anything, right? Because all that art training, Renaissance art training,
Well, you were clearly self-taught.
Yeah. So,
From really, that point forward to the first roll of film,
yeah.
It just...
Well, it was second nature to me, because I grew up with the Renaissance art, with Impressionist art. So some of my photographs are Impressionistic, some of them are Italian Renaissance. So anyway, I go into school with no money. I told them I'll pay them as I can, and they said, fine. And I started shooting pictures of people's children, of their dogs, family shots, anything they wanted, their car. I would do whatever it was to make 50 bucks. Now, 50 bucks was a lot of money in those days. I could buy a lens for $50. So within 6 months, I've got money coming in, shooting all this periphery stuff. And I loved school. I loved the Art Center school. Mr. Potts, the teacher, was the great teacher. And I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to shoot tabletop stuff, commercial stuff. I said, that's not who I am. If I do this, I'm going to be shooting people. And that's what I'm going to do. And they said, well, you're going to suffer because if you don't do what the class wants you to do, you're not going to get the best grades. But I said, I don't care about that. I'm shooting people. And that's what I did. And then how the story ends is I've been doing this now for 1.5 years, almost 2 years, shooting people. Beautiful portraits. I'll show you some of them later from the early days. And this guy that I'm playing basketball with, his name is Lou Adler. And Lou says to me, you know, I hear you're this insanely good photographer, and you know, I have no money. I'm just getting started, but he had mafia money behind him too. We all did. And so I'm going to start a record company. I want you to come in with me, be the photographer, art director, whatever. You know, I go, okay, I'll do that. I was really never thinking of being commercial at all, but it sounded like fun. First of all, I liked Lou. I knew him through Terry Melcher, who was also a record producer. Terry and I, when I was in school, shot an album cover for fun so that we could sleep with a girl on the cover. She was so hot and sexy. This is for real. And neither of us got to sleep with her, but the cover was successful. Columbia loved it, and I was just a young student at the time. So they liked me, and so the minute I became a professional now, out of school, they were feeding me albums to do. So that's how my career started. And Lou, of course, Mamas and the Papas and Carole King and all of that, and we all started making money, big money, money that I never thought I was going to make. As an artist, my dream was to live in Big Sur, sell a print for $100, an art print. And I never did one of those things. I ended up with Lou, and we had such a good time and so much fun, and it was all new and money pouring in, and I didn't know what to do. So I bought a house, a big house, and it was so cheap. It's worth $35 million today, but then it was $75,000.
Oh my goodness.
4 acres with horses and the whole thing, right? It was crazy.
How fortunate were you?
Yeah, well, my whole life was like that. My whole life.
What's amazing to me is you knew immediately that you wanted to shoot people.
Yeah.
You know, young people spend their lifetime looking for what they want to do and honing in on a skill usually.
Yeah.
But you, not even wanting to be into photography right off the bat, you knew immediately, given the choice, it's people for me.
Yeah, well, I saw great photography at museums, Irving Penn, Avedon, those guys, and I knew what you could do with photography as an art in the commercial world, but that's not where I thought I was going to go.
Yeah.
I wanted to shoot people. Like, my first photograph was a migrant child worker in the fields in Salinas, which is near where I was in the Army, in Fort Ord. So that's what I was interested in, sort of social change. And that was part of why I loved Bob Dylan so much, who influenced me as a student in college. And
well, that's amazing. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more Guy Webster and his amazing stories. We're going to hear a little bit about why he wanted to shoot Bob Dylan, and he has an enormous print right behind us here of Bob on the wall, and he's about to show these up in Northern California. So you're listening to Making Life Brighter, and if you need to listen to this archive or would like to access it, you can find it on iTunes on the podcast as well as on the website under the radio tab. You can join our mailing list and find out more, and you can also watch this outtake on YouTube later, so stay tuned. You've been watching and listening to part 1 in a several-part series with Guy Webster, iconic photographer to rock and roll legends and movie stars, and featuring his new book, Big Shots. So you can find Big Shots on Amazon.com, and you can stay tuned to watch more episodes with Guy Webster right here on Making Life Brighter. For more information, you can go to makinglifebrighter.com.
Lisa? Yeah. Do I look good?
No, you've got a fuzzy.
Yeah, let's clean me up.
You got so many
I had this
fuzzies from
blanket
that
on.
blanket.
I had a white blanket over my shoulders.
Probably wouldn't show, but
You never
for
know.
posterity, it'd be nice if you didn't have fuzzies.
Thank you. See, that's it. Oh, how cute. Santa baby.
Yeah.
Santa baby.
I'll have to send you my CD.
I'm like a musicologist, you know. I know all the songs. Is that you?
Yeah,
Pretty sexy.
with my little tigers.
Very sexy.
Gotta do tigers.
I like it.
Yeah. This was the cover one. This is what started all the debauchery right there.
But
That was not planned. He walked around me.
I wanna
He
tell you
bumped the
something.
light and walked around me and came right over me and just hugged me.
I was so modest that it was not sensational in my life, even though I lived this incredible life with everything good happening for me. But I've been basically a Buddhist my whole life.
You're
since
Buddhist?
I was 19. Buddhist philosophy. I
Right.
don't sit and meditate or practice. I did all that. It's like there's a famous line, when you get the phone call and you answer it and you get the message, hang up.
I love that.
That's a good one.